Hey guys, welcome to another New World video. In today's video, I thought we could talk about some of the things from the January devblog video update that was posted today on the New World website. So let's get into it. The blog began, as you would expect, with a lot of fluff and discussing what's coming, like mutations, Umbral Shard system, and the past Christmas event. Nothing really new, or anything I feel like I need to touch on. But if you are interested, I have posted a link to the blog in the description of this video. However, when it came to the question and answer section, there was some interesting points I feel need to be discussed. The first thing they talked about was server transfers. So basically, they were saying that back in mid-November to early December, they had a real feeling that they had lost the trust of the community and were aware that people were suffering on servers with very low populations. So as a kind of knee-jerk reaction, they looked at all of the server worlds and thought, well, if we take all of the servers that are suffering on each of the world sets and combine them on their world sets, then the problem is solved. Either combining multiple servers with struggling populations or merging struggling servers into healthy ones within the world sets. This was, of course, untested for the most part and not a great choice in hindsight. They felt like after they had done it, that the mergers in December were less than ideal. Their original goal was to quickly merge all of the worlds that were struggling into one, taking the populations and combining them, and they thought that would solve the problem. But then the housing persistence issue arose. And if you're wondering what the housing persistence issue was, and is currently, a lot of people who were transferred ended up with this issue, where their house had either had all of the furniture removed and placed into their storage, and now for some reason, they're unable to place anything within their house, or they've completely lost their houses, but yet they're still being told they own houses in certain towns, and they can't pay their taxes, even though it says that their taxes are due. They can't travel to territories, and they can't purchase more houses, even in different territories, because it says that their character already owns houses. This bug is currently their top priority to fix, is what they were saying, as it should be, because this would be a character-killing bug, really. And then she said once it's done, they're doing another round of merges probably in February if you listened to earlier in the video. I know she didn't specify that it would be in February, but they continue to say over and over again that February is going to be the month of polish and bug fixes. So I'm assuming what this means is anything that they really talked about in the video is being fixed in February, or at least looked at in February. So they say that it's currently being fixed. And then once it's done, they're going to have another round of merges with the current worlds that haven't been merged yet or need to be merged again. So I would expect that probably in February after the PTR. That would be my guess anyway. Then once they've completed all of that, they're saying that they're going to re-add the character transfer tokens back to the shop. I'm not sure. They didn't specify if they're going to give us another free one or if they were just going to be added to the shop for purchase. But it's good to know that they're going to be added back to the shop. It's not a thing that's forgotten. So I would expect all of that to probably take place near the end of February. They say it's their highest priority, but they're not willing to break anything else for it. But it's good to know that it's coming and it's high on their priority list. Next, they talked about some of the bugs that are going to be addressed in the patch that we're going to be getting in January. And the ones that they listed were the drowning on land issue, which I can assure you is a real issue if you've never experienced it. It's very annoying. I have it happen to me a lot in Evanscale Reach. The blocking faction progression bug that I had talked about in an earlier video that is affecting a lot of the community, that's caused by if you transfer factions to a new faction, then for some reason you decide to transfer back to your original faction because you have completed the quest to progress in that faction at one time, and because factions reset when you transfer, you're now unable to progress. You're stuck, basically breaking your character. So it's good that that's going to be fixed. The Void Gauntlet sliding attack, that's going to be fixed. And animation canceling on the bow, which I'm not sure everybody's really happy is being fixed, but that's being fixed. And they're also going to be looking at addressing a little bit more of the weapon swap issue. But they claim that's not a bug, and they're going to keep looking at it. The same with the desync, they claim is not a bug, but they're going to look at making it better. Another thing they touched on was OPR, and specifically brutes. They mentioned how they were increasing the cost to summon brutes to make them more difficult to summon, although I don't know about you, but I don't think increasing it from 500 to 750 is really going to make it all that more difficult. But they also talked about how they're nerfing the brutes' rolling boulders that they throw so that they'll have a cooldown in between. I really think that this is where the devs are disconnected from the community. I don't know about your opinion on it. I like the idea of having a PvP or a PvE element in our PvP arena. Don't get me wrong. However, the brutes, to me, are less of an obstacle and more of an exploit. And what I mean by this is I've seen OPR games where you basically have zero resistance. You see none of the other team because they're all off farming tokens from the beginning of the game. Then like 15 minutes into the game, all of a sudden 6 brutes spawn and they win the game simply because they just pop bosses, 2 of them at every outpost. I like the idea of adding a PvE element that makes it a little more interesting, but the brute's too much. It should be something that's an obstacle that creates a bit of chaos and confusion, but not like a boss that takes 10 minutes to kill. Like, they should have just reduced its hit points by, say, 50%. Because if you look at how long it takes to kill a brute now, if you reduced it by 50%, it would still be a thing that would be dangerous and could kill half your team if you were trying to ignore it, but you could kill it in enough time that you could still react to it and overcome it. I just think right now it's turning the PvP into something that's more, it's less about your ability to PvP and more about your ability to farm brutes faster. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. Maybe what the fuck do I know? Maybe I'm completely wrong. And then they talked about the housing tax reduction, which again, I feel like is a little bit of a disconnect. They talked about how like it's been reduced for a couple of months by a great deal, and they're going to be increasing it again, but they're not going to be increasing it to as much as it was before, but they're not going to keep it as low as it is now, which is good. I'm not complaining about that aspect, but they kept referring to complaints in the community about the housing taxes and the territory and all of that. And I think what they're misunderstanding is people are concerned about inequitable power distribution to the companies that have retained ownership of Everfall or Windsward for a long period of time, having a disproportionate income of wealth that nobody can ever match. So you reach a point of critical mass where you can never overthrow them. And I don't really see how reducing our housing tax by 100 gold is going to change anything in terms of that, but that's a good thing, I guess. They're reducing it, so it's a good thing. Then they talked about how their biggest priority is the bans, the bots, and the dupes. They still claim that the mass reporting is not causing the auto bans of innocent players. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I tend to agree with that, and I believe them. And I'll tell you why in a few minutes. But basically what they were saying is they're now working with Easy Anti-Cheat to try and identify people using bot programs on their machines. And they're saying this has led to banning 9,000 bot accounts and 600 other accounts that they don't necessarily say are using bots, but they're banned through investigating associated with botting. I don't know what that means, but so 9,600 people have been banned in connection to botting. So that's good. I don't know if I believe that number completely, because the issue that I have with them believing the mass report stories that you hear all over YouTube and all over the forums is that on my server, there are many bots, and there are bots that I even have on video, which I'll show you right now, where I've watched them progress and get to level 60. And I know that my entire company and many other companies have mass reported these bots, and basically the entire server, it's talked about in chat, but yet they remain. So the thing that confuses me is that these bots get mass reported by hundreds of people that I know of reporting them, yet they're here. And then you get a guy in the forums that says some company didn't like him, or they were going to go to war, and 35 people reported him and now he's banned. I mean, it could be true. I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm just confused as to the inconsistency of it. You would think if mass reporting was triggering bans, anyone who would be mass reported would get banned. And if it goes before a real person, you would think that they could easily see this as a bot, because anybody easily could. I don't think some of these characters have ever moved from the place that they're botting in. And they say that they no longer want people posting anything about exploits or any duping or cheats or anything like that in the forums anymore. They want you to direct message them to the devs, or like the moderators of the forum, so that they can look at them, but they're not made public to the community, causing the whole entire economy to break down, which makes sense, and that's probably a good plan. And then they talked about the February PTR, which they officially said is going to happen, but it won't contain any new content whatsoever. It'll be a bug fix and polish month, as they kept saying over and over again. And one of the big things that they're doing in the February PTR is they're doing a full pass on crafting in terms of missing ingredients, missing recipes, making ingredients more searchable on the market and easier to find. So I can tell you I'm really looking forward to that. They're also doing a full pass on perks and abilities. So any perks that are currently bugged or not operating properly or not performing properly, they're going to be looking at those and getting them working right. So I think that might change a little bit of stuff in the metas, because some people rely on broken perks. Some people have done their build in such a way that they don't love because a perk that they want to use is broken and they can't. So anything that it's going to bring a lot of interesting changes to the game anyway, having all of those fixed and operating correctly. And basically they are going to be looking at all of the broken things, because what they were talking about is as they add new things, they tend to break older things. They're doing a full repass on all of the older content, like quest markers, broken quest lines, faction problems, everything like that, and they're going to be repairing all of that. Markers not being in the correct place, NPCs that might not be offering you the correct quest, and anything like that that is broken at the moment, they're going to be repassing and fixing. Just that quality of life stuff that'll make the game all that much better and smoother to play. And they said they've created and dedicated an entire team to the desync issue, but it's not their top priority right now, because they're saying that desync is not being caused by a single issue like people believe. It is a collection of many issues that are causing it. So they're focusing on them one at a time and repairing each issue that's causing desync, and then eventually they hope to not have any. But I think it'll be a lot of whack-a-mole. Like they'll fix 1 and 2 more will spring up, and they'll fix 3 and 5 more will spring up. So I think that might be one of those battles that we're fighting for a long time, unfortunately. And in the next PTR, they will have a direct weapon swap test, which will be kind of cool. They're hoping that it will speed up the weapon swapping and make it smoother. Although they wanted people to know that there will never be an instant weapon swap, they always have to have the window swap with a queue. So that kind of sucks. Like, I think a lot of people were expecting more responsiveness and an instant weapon swap. And then they talked about some stuff for the future. They have a lot more plans about expanding the open world, but it is way, way, way out. And they wouldn't even really talk directly on the things that they have planned, but they're saying that there are going to be updates in PTRs and it's going to contain world stuff. So that's kind of cool to know that it's coming and being thought about anyway. And then they answered the burning question because of a lot of people believing that it was way, way too early to bump the gear score. So they said the reason that they bumped the gear score now was directly to pair it with the mutators, like they've said, so that people would increase in power as they climb the scale. Although I think that's a fallacy, because you get your gear to 625 and you gain 1 attribute point. Like, it doesn't really change much. But the main reason behind doing it was because they thought that people, and they were thinking of the players, because if you had a gear score 600 item that you farmed for, like the musket from Lazarus Instrumentality, for example, people rage about how difficult it is to get, and then when they finally get it, they feel like it's Christmas morning. They wanted to reinforce that feeling, so instead of you running mutators, and you had finally gotten this musket, and then 3 days later you run a mutator that drops a musket that's slightly better, they didn't want to take away from that feeling, I guess, was what they were saying. So instead you would be able to upgrade your Lazarus musket to 625. So basically they just wanted you to have gear that was special to you that you kept, which makes sense. But I mean, it's a lot of grind for very little reward, I think, is the issue that they're missing. And they even said that when they said if they were making that decision today, they maybe wouldn't have released it so soon. But because it's done, it's done. So they're just going to focus on it. But they did say that it was too early. Their top priorities in terms of PvP for the future, they said, were war declaration and war performance issues. And they're working on them over time. But it's going to be a long-term commitment. And they even said they eventually had plans and they had talked about it, and it's in its early stages. So don't expect anything soon, but they have plans of adding casual versions of wars, but that's a long way out. But that would be interesting to see. I don't know really what that is. A war with 3 people? I don't really understand. Maybe it'll have more NPC interacting, like bots or NPCs in the war. I'm not sure how they would even do that. Small scale PvP is their favorite part though, so they're going to be really focusing on that. So they're going to be they're exploring. Got to be careful how you word it. They're exploring the idea of arenas. But again, they said it was too early to really talk about what it's going to be because it's not even close to ready. But at least they're talking about it. So guys, it looks like the devs are listening and the changes are coming. I just hope they come quickly. But I have to say that this dev update was a lot more insightful than the last time. I am super excited to see a lot of the bugs fixed, especially in terms of crafting and getting people their transfer tokens they so desperately need. I was really happy to hear that another round of merges was coming so soon as potentially February, to get those people I know who are still suffering on low population servers that never merged back into the game. As for the bots, I expect little on this front. The people who use these are just by their nature 10 steps ahead of the software to detect them. To this date, there are still hundreds of thousands of bots in World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV, and in any MMO really. So expecting a game as young as New World to eliminate them overnight is just unrealistic. Anyways, guys, I have to say I'm feeling a lot more positive today about the state of the game than I was yesterday, and the upcoming February PTR and what we can expect. And I look forward to seeing people return. I do have a video I plan to release today, but I put off because this dropped, where I cover why I think people are leaving, and it does get a little bit critical, but expect that one tomorrow. And if you are interested in sharing your thoughts, feel free to in the comments. Do you think that they're way off? Do you think they're disconnected from the community? A lot of the things that I listened to in this video made me get the feeling that they're listening to the community, but they're not quite understanding what the community wants. Okay guys, well I guess that just about covers it. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.